Good evening, Zimbabwe. You are listening to Studio 7 from the Voice of America in Washington on Wednesday, August 9th, 2023. This is the Diaspora Forum. I am Kips Dube. Tonight, we are talking to Zimbabweans living outside the country about preparations for the forthcoming general elections. Namhla sixoxa labadabuka eZimbabwe ngokwenzakala elizweni ngesikhathi kulungiselelwa ukhetho oluzaqhutshwa mhla ka-23 Ncwabakazi. Abahlola ukhetho abakunhlanganiso ezigoqela i-African Union, European Union labamele ohulumende abatshiyeneyo sebekole Zimbabwe. iZimbabwe Electoral Commission layo ithi isiqalile ukudinda amaphepha okuvota. Kuyaxokozela endaweni ezitshiyeneyo lapho okulodlakela lwezombusazwe. Abahlala kwamanye amazwe abaningi bathi kabasize bevote kukhetho lolu. But first, let's have a look at what is happening in Zimbabwe and other nations. Economists in Zimbabwe say the government is artificially manipulating the country's sinking currency in a bid to secure victory in this month's general elections. Inflation and the weakness of the Zimbabwean dollar have become issues in the election, with the main opposition party saying it will abandon the currency if voted into office. Columbus Mavunga reports from Harare.
6, 7, 8.
Over the past few weeks, Zimbabwe's dollar has gotten stronger against the US dollar, a rare occurrence in recent years. Still, prices for groceries and other basic goods keep going up. 32-year-old big boy Kushupika wants that to change.
My wish is for prices and rate to move together, not having prices in US dollars going up when its rate against the Zimbabwe dollar is going down. Prices keep increasing in US dollars. That's where the challenge is. I do not know how they have to solve this.
Zimbabweans have used foreign currencies like the US dollar and the South African rand since the collapse of the original Zimbabwean dollar amid severe hyperinflation in 2008. The government issued a new Zimbabwean dollar a few years ago, but it has struggled to maintain value. Economists say that in recent weeks, the government has suspended payments for major projects like road construction with the goal of reining in spending, bolstering the currency, and easing inflation. Gift Mugano, an economics professor at Durban University of Technology, says this is being done because of Zimbabwe's August 23 general election.
They want to create a false impression that the government is winning the war on exchange rate. But in all economic reasoning, we cannot concentrate on exchange rate as an effective policy instrument to direct the economy to stability.
But Persistence Gwanyanya, an economist who sits on the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe's Monetary Committee, rejects claims of currency manipulation. He says the government's currency measures are working and prices will go down.
But we understand the adjustment may not happen in one day. It may take time. But I'm pretty confident that post-election, the situation will remain as it is.
Prosper Chitambara is a senior economist with the Labour and Economic Development Research Institute of Zimbabwe. He predicts that after the election, which the ruling ZANU-PF party is expected to win, the government will resume payments and the local dollar will revert to its usual ways, plummeting.
Ultimately, for sustainability, we need obviously a tight monetary policy. We need monetary discipline. We need to control money supply. We need fiscal discipline. We need to control public spending. And of course, we also need institutional reforms, especially those that are aimed at plugging in leakages and corruption within the system, because that also has a destabilizing effect on the macroeconomy.
Meanwhile, Zimbabweans like Kushupika are closely watching the currency as they see prices on basic goods and services rise and the local dollar is firming up. Columbus Mavunga for VOA News, Harare, Zimbabwe.
At the same time, the two top political parties, the ruling ZANU-PF party and the opposition Citizens Coalition for Change, have been conducting rallies in all parts of Zimbabwe. They are promising Zimbabweans a lot ahead of the crucial elections. A CCC activist, Tinashe Chitsunge, was recently stoned to death in Harare by suspected ZANU-PF supporters amid a tense political situation in the country. CCC's activists in Masvingo, Mashonaland Central, Manicaland, Bubi in Matabele North, and other regions claim that they are being intimidated by ZANU-PF supporters. The ruling party has denied any wrongdoing. In other news, Washington is closely watching Niger's coup leaders after they chose not to meet a Sunday deadline to return the elected president to power after regional powers failed to act on their threat of military action. Meanwhile, the United States has proposed aid to the impoverished West African nation. VOA's Anita Powell reports from Washington on what's next for Niger.
In Niger's capital, Niamey, supporters of Niger's military coup were defiant, despite warnings from regional leaders and the West, as junta leaders continue to hold the president captive more than a week after they seized power.
Le Conseil national pour la sauvegarde de la patrie met en garde.
The National Council for the Safeguard of the Country warns ECOWAS and the foreign power against all interference in the internal affairs of Niger, as well as the disastrous consequences of this military adventure on the security of our sub-region, its stability, and the unity of our community.
To symbolize their seriousness, protesters in Niamey on Sunday slaughtered a rooster painted with the tricolor of former colonizer France. Sunday's deadline to return President Mohamed Bazoum to power came and went. From captivity, he managed to dictate an editorial to the Washington Post, in which he said the coup, led by the head of his presidential guard, has no justification whatsoever. The Economic Community of West African States, or ECOWAS, threatened to use force if Bazoum was not released. The body will now hold an emergency summit Thursday. Niger is a key U.S. security partner in the unstable Sahel region. On Monday, Pentagon officials said there was no change to the force posture of the hundreds of U.S. troops there, and no plans to evacuate them. Niger, one of the world's poorest countries, has the highest fertility rate in Africa and depends heavily on foreign aid. On Monday, the State Department discussed its decision to cut aid.
It's a significant amount. I don't have a number because it's a pause, and it's a pause that we would hope would be reversed if the junta leaders would step aside and restore constitutional order tomorrow. That pause would be the pause would go away, and security assistance would be reinstated. But as we've made clear, hundreds of millions of dollars are at stake.
But the junta leaders have some support, analysts say, as their counterparts in nearby Burkina Faso, Mali, and Guinea have come out on their side and held meetings with the Niamey group.
They're afraid of a regional economic community intervening and restoring democracy, and that's not what they stand for. I guess it shows how fearful they are that a values-based intervention that is a lot about preserving and supporting democratic process and accountable government is something that they don't welcome.
So with this testy region bristling with anti-Western vibes, what can the wider world do?
Any action by international partners, be they France or the United States, could be misinterpreted, misconstrued. So I think it is prudent of the Pentagon just to keep their people in place and kind of watch out as the mediation politics and possibly military intervention planning continues.
Meanwhile, in Niamey, residents have been stockpiling food and supplies for what could be a tense week ahead. Anita Powell, VOA News, Washington.
And now back to our topic of the day. It's exactly 14 days before Zimbabwe holds council, parliamentary and presidential elections. It's obvious now that the majority of Zimbabweans living in the diaspora won't be able to cast their votes in the nations where they live. Millions of Zimbabweans live in the United States, the United Kingdom, South Africa, Botswana, Australia, and other nations. Tonight we are talking to some of them to hear their views about this year's elections. Now I think we've got our guests joining us to discuss this issue. We've got Mrs. Priscilla Ndlovu. a Zimbabwean living in Washington State. We also have Mr. Frank Guni, a ZANU-PF activist, and Mr. Itai Marombetsa, a Citizens Coalition for Change activist based in North Carolina. And Mr. Guni is in Washington, D.C. So welcome to the program all.
Thank you, and thank you, Zimbabwe.
Thank you very much. So we'll start with you, Mrs. Ndlovu. Zimbabwe is in the process of conducting crucial general elections. There have been incidents of violence, and one opposition CCC activist has already died. Give us your take on this.
Hello.
Yes, Mrs. Ndlovu. Yes, go ahead.
Anche sikhuluma isiNdebele sikhuluma ngolimi bani?
Ngikasa ngesikhiwa khona lapho kulungile. Qala ngesikhiwa.
Okay. Good evening, listeners back home and the people that are working so hard to make the election happen. I'm going to respond about violence. Violence has never been a good thing for a nation. We have had elections for so many years, and we have failed to, as a nation, to differ without violating each other's rights or violating each other's rights to the extent of killing each other. I think it is incumbent upon us as human beings, as neighbors, as people that live in the community, as Zimbabweans, that violence is a bad thing. Whether it's perpetrated by either party, it's really ugly, and it gives our country a bad picture. We come out to our neighbors as violent people or international as violent people. I know that we all going to go out and look at ZANU-PF and look at the opposition party. But I wish my message goes to us as individuals, as human beings, as people of faith, as people of a community, Ubuntu. Killing one another has never been a good thing for the fact that we don't understand each other, we disagree with each other. How long have we disagreed with each other in life and managed to survive? But when it comes to politics, we commit violence, and we do it because we think we are trying to win. And I think it's sad that we have become people that are very intolerant.
Thank you very much. And stay on the line. We also have Mr. Guni. Mr. Guni, what do you think about what's happening right now in Zimbabwe?
Well, I think we are geared towards our elections, and I think the preparations are in top notch at the moment. It is our understanding that the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission is almost finishing up printing of the ballot papers in readiness for the elections. Coming back to the issue of violence, I agree 100% that we owe it to ourselves as Zimbabweans and as human beings to desist from political violence or violence of any nature. We are Zimbabweans first and foremost. We all belong to the same country. We all should live in peace. We need to depolarize our political environment. Our political environment is currently polarized to the extent that individuals end up physically fighting, and that's not necessary. The leadership of any political party in Zimbabwe do talk to each other, they don't fight each other. And it is time that all political parties not only take pledges, but take active measures to ensure that their supporters and followers do not engage in any violence or do not interrupt the political activities of other political players. That way we create a conducive political environment for Zimbabwe.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kuni. Now let's turn to you, Mr. Marombetsa. Your party has actually claimed that its members are being intimidated, and they've linked the intimidation and death of Tinashe Chitsunge to ZANU-PF. Give us your assessment of the current situation, Mr. Marombetsa.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Greetings to your listeners. Yes, it is very disappointing and to still be talking about violent political environment at this juncture. It's unfortunate that ZANU-PF has failed to reform in terms of its conduct when it comes to how it operates in its political space, and more so during the period where we are conducting election. It is on record, rather, that ZANU-PF has been mainly the perpetrator of violence, especially during the election period. And we have so many cases and incidents that have been recorded over time since the opposition politics became very effective from 1999, from the MDC led by Morgan Tsvangirai. We have lost so many lives of activists in the opposition at the hands of ZANU-PF. It is our continued plea that the leaders be exemplary and instigate or condone those who are being used to orchestrate this violence.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Marombeza. Ukuthi mbuyele kumama unkosikazi Ndlovu. Ngesindebele khonapho nxa singakhuluma ngokuthi abanengi benu siyabona ukuthi alivoti kukhetho luzayo. Kukhona elikwenzayo yini ukuthi kumbe likhuthaza abantu eZimbabwe ukuthi bayevota kumbe lani liphonga ukubukela nje ukuthi pho kungathiwani?
Salibonani balaleli. Indaba yokuvota indaba elilungelo lomuntu wonke. Abantu bayakhuthazwa ukuthi bavote. Kodwa kuza sinceda ngani thina esibakhuthazayo ukuthi bahambe bayevota thina siphandle? Sizabakhuthaza kodwa asivoti. Ungathi umkhuthaza umuntu nxa ngingakhuthazanga umama o ngikhuthaza omunye angitshela ukuthi wena ongitshela ukuthi ngibe mvota wena uyenzani khona ngapho buya la uzevota. Mina lapho okukhulu engikubonayo ukuthi sesisemazweni okwesikhathi eside, some of us sesendlule ama-20 years. Sivota lapha esikhona. Sivotela izinto ezisikhathazayo lapha esikhona. Silazo ezinye izinto ezisikhathazayo ekhaya ngoba inhliziyo zethu zisekhaya because home is best. Mina ngibona ngani into eqhakathekileyo lapha ukuthi sikhuthaza abantu ukuthi bavote. But ngibuyela kuyena lana indaba yokuthi asifunde nini ukuthi nxa sisehlukana embonweni politics kube lokuthula, ngoba abantu abasekhaya kwesinye isikhathi kabavoti ngokupheleleyo, whether umuntu weZANU kumbe umuntu we-opposition party, ngenxa yokuthi siyahlukuluzana. Mina ngibona ngani indaba eqhakathekileyo ukuthi singakhuthaza abantu bayithi loba sikhatshana ukuthi asibe nini lokuthula singahlukuluzani, because ukuhlukuluzana yikho kubi. And mina generally I'm not assigning the blame umuntu noyi-one. I'm saying as a nation, as a community, singabantu abahlala ndawonye emizini yethu lapho esihlala khona, abantwana ezikolweni lendaweni zonke, asifunde nini ukuphila ngokuthula njengabantu.
Siyakuzwa kakhulu. Siyakuzwa kakhulu sibili. Ukuthi isikhathi sangikhona yiso sesihambile. So ungaphosa nje 10 seconds khonapho bese usihambela mama. You can say your last word and then you go back to work.
Hayi, mina ngiyabingelela abantu bakithi, ngiyabakhuthaza. Ngicela ukuthi sibe ngabantu abalokuthula, abantu abalobuntu. AmaZimbabweans la nxa singapha emazweni saziwa njengabantu abalokuthula abangela budlwangudlwangu, ngoba siphila sonke, loba ungwezanu kumbe ungwe-opposition, njengoba khonapho umkhwenyana wami khonapho uGuni umkhwenyana. So asiphile nini ngokuthula abantu, sivote nini ngobunengi benu. Thank you.
Yes, that was Priscilla Ndlovu. Thank you very much. Mr. Kuni, muchavota here kana kuti nemi futa muvoti. Muchaenda kuZimbabwe here?
Aiwa tinovota.
Uchaenda iwe? Uchaenda?
Vazhinji vanoenda, ini ndinovhotera kuno. Sezvamunoziva, there are certain provisions dzekuti vamwe vanobvumidzwa kuvhota vari kunze kwenyika, zviri pamurawo, zviri pamutemo. Vanenge vasingabvumirwi kuti vavhote vari kunze kwenyika vanosungirwa kuti vaende kumusha kundovhota muconstituency mavakarejista.
So Bahuni mataura kuti imi muchavhota sei?
No, but before that I need to address something here.
Yeah. I think it's worth answering that question first.
Sorry?
I think it's worth answering that question. Then so that we can proceed. Yeah.
I can't let this go. The other speaker from North Carolina, the CC guy, I wanted to make it clear. ZANU-PF does not sanction violence. ZANU-PF is on record from our president, the entire party, indicating that we do not condone, we do not sanction, and we do not want violence of any nature. Let us not assign blame or try to paint ZANU-PF with a bad brush. CCC, MDC, whatever name they call themselves, they also have a history of violence. The assault on Kozani Kupe, the assault on Elton Mankoma, the assault on Priscilla Msiairambwe. There are numerous incidences where CC members were fighting amongst themselves. So let's be honest and say we must call on all our people in Zimbabwe to desist from any form of violence, regardless of whichever political party or whichever political belief they belong to. So, going back to your question, yes, we know that the electoral law is very clear in Zimbabwe. If you want to vote in Zimbabwe, you would have registered and you would have confirmed that you are registered in a particular constituency, and you are required to go back to Zimbabwe and vote in your registered constituency. That's the law.
Yes.
Or want to change, then they can ask the next parliament to change that law. Other than that, those who are allowed to vote while on government business or on government assignments outside of Zimbabwe will vote and are allowed to do so under the current law.
Thank you very much. And we assume maybe you are saying you are going to be on government assignment. Mr. Marombeza, about what Mr. Kun is saying, he's saying you are also found on the wrong side of the law, and in terms of violence and all those kind of things. What's your view on that, briefly?
Yeah, it's very unfortunate that when people are entrenched so much in politics of patronage and they fail to speak truth to power, these records that we are talking of political violence are not something that we are just speculating. These are things that have been recorded, and the current developments on the ground where one of the CCC activists was murdered in cold blood, and this, in essence, is nothing that we are trying to just apportion blame. And the perpetrators are known that they are ZANU-PF activists. So the preaching or just mere talk of peace or tolerance by ZANU-PF leadership is just cheap talk, because this has not translated to what we see happening on the ground. The organization called FAZ, Forever Friends of Zimbabwe, whatever the name that they call themselves, is operating in rural constituencies and holding opposition political activists at ransom. Leaders, village leaders are being forced to take names of ordinary citizens in those rural areas. These are activities that we are witnessing, that are being, some which are being actually captured by victims who are being persecuted by these organizations, which, if the government of the day, ZANU-PF, was honest, has the capacity to deal with these kind of bogus and terrorist organization.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you.
It's clear that it is being orchestrated at the blessing of the state. So we condemn ZANU-PF's activities, and we condemn its violence that it continues to perpetrate.
Thank you very much. Now we're joined by Miss Angela Stube, former provincial administrator for Matabele South. She is in the United Kingdom. Ms. Stube, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Yes, give us your assessment of what is going on in Zimbabwe. You know, if you can background that using your experience as a person who we have seen over the years how Zimbabwe, conducts its election.
I think I am worried about the activities I think that are going on around the country in terms of people's freedom to act, people's freedom of choice. I see people being beaten up, people being rounded up. I just thought, 40 years plus into our independence, our elections would be really very peaceful, and we would allow difference even within households for people to go and vote without any problems or without any reprisals. So I think we haven't got to that stage yet. In terms of the constituencies themselves, I think I have heard this year, that said I haven't been to Zimbabwe this year, but I've heard that people's polling stations have been moved. So some people who've been voting at polling station X this year, their names are not there. They are now somewhere else. And sometimes it involves them commuting to go and vote. So I think those are some of the things that are those are changes that don't help the local person in terms of knowing where to vote, because people are so used to going where they could vote, and they're finding that their names are not there.
Yeah, before time is out here, Ms. Dube, we see that there could be another election. There will be another election after this one. So what changes do you want to see concerning the diaspora vote, going forward?
Right. The first thing is that the diaspora, we contribute more than 900 million a year to Zimbabwe. So we are a very big constituency financially and in every other aspect. So going forward, really, we would want to be able to vote. We would want to be able to be allowed to vote wherever we are. We would like a diaspora desk. We would like, a diaspora desk within Ministry of Foreign Affairs or, Home Affairs, wherever it can sit. We would like, at some point to have some staff within that diaspora desk. And maybe eventually we can have our own diaspora minister who represents us and our interest in Zimbabwe, because we're a big constituency.
Is that possible, Ms. Dube? 10 seconds.
It is possible, very possible. What we need is just that paradigm shift in terms of the thinking of government. I think sometimes the problem that we're having right now is that thinking of enemies and Pasnaningi and up with so and so.
Thank you,
I think
Mr.
once we, so I think once we are done with that, it is very possible. It's about the political will.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dube. Our time is up, Ms. Dube. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for your time on Livetalk. Let's meet again next time. This is Gibbs Dube signing off from Washington, D.C. Good night, Zimbabwe.